The first light of dawn was still a rumor on the horizon, but in Wang Sheng's mind, the darkness was absolute. He jolted awake, a cold sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. The dream. It was always the same dream now. Xiao Wei's face, so exquisitely beautiful, melting away like wax, her smile twisting into a jagged maw of teeth and shadows. He sat up, gasping for air that felt thick and stale. Beside him, Pei Rong was already awake. Her eyes were open in the gloom, watching him. She didn't say a word, and in that silence, he felt a chasm open between them, wider than any argument could create. His own thoughts were a frantic whisper. It's nothing. Just guilt. Just my conscience eating at me. He lay back down, but the comfort of the bed was gone. Pei Rong turned away from him, her back a rigid wall of unspoken pain. A little later, in the pale light of the kitchen, the scent of cooking porridge filled the air. Pei Rong stood over the stove, a solitary figure. When Wang Sheng entered, still cloaked in the dread of his nightmare, she didn't even look up. You cried out in your sleep, she said, her voice flat. Bad dream, he muttered, nothing more. She handed him a bowl, her movements precise and detached. You used to tell me your dreams. He took it, but the food was ash in his mouth. He could barely swallow. The silence was a living thing, suffocating them both. Pei Rong's eyes fell on his hand, which trembled so slightly he hadn't even noticed. The fog clung to the streets as Wang Sheng walked to the yamen. The usual morning bustle of vendors setting up their stalls felt distant, muffled. The world seemed to be holding its breath. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of an alley, blocking his path. It was a woman, a wandering Daoist priestess. She was middle-aged, with a calm, unnerving gaze, dressed in simple gray robes and carrying a plain wooden sword. Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt as if she could see straight through him, into the rot in his soul. Young man, she said, her voice low but clear, cutting through the morning haze. Black key clings to your brow like smoke. A yin thing follows you close. Very close. Wang Sheng flinched, his first instinct to deny, to push away this unwelcome truth. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm fine. The Daoist's expression didn't change. Deny it if you like, but the thing wearing human skin will drink your heart before the next full moon if you don't cast it out. Before he could protest further, she pressed a small yellow talisman into his palm, a simple piece of paper covered in stark red ink. Burn this at midnight if fear finally opens your eyes, she commanded, or keep lying to yourself. Your choice. And just as quickly as she had appeared, she was gone, melting back into the crowd. Wang Sheng stared at the talisman, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He quickly stuffed it into his sleeve, his heart hammering against his ribs. Later that day, he sought the quiet of his study, but he wasn't alone. Xiao Wei was there, waiting for him. She was more radiant than ever, the hairpin he'd given her nestled in her dark hair, her eyes bright with what looked like concern. You look troubled today, she said, her voice a soft caress. What happened? He hesitated. Street preacher, talking nonsense about ghosts. Xiao Wei laughed, a gentle, musical sound. People fear what they don't understand, she murmured, stepping closer. Sit, let me ease your mind. She had prepared tea and poured him a cup. As she handed it to him, their fingers brushed. A strange, sharp chill shot up his arm, so subtle he almost missed it. He instinctively pulled his hand back. I've been thinking, he began, his voice low. Maybe you should find another place. It's not safe here. Her eyes widened, a perfect picture of hurt and disbelief. You want me to leave? After everything? He stumbled over his words. It's not that. It's complicated. For a split second, her expression flickered. Behind the mask of sadness, he saw something else, something cold and predatory. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a devastating vulnerability. I have nowhere else, she whispered. You're all I have. The guilt rushed back in, drowning his unease. He stayed with her far longer than he had intended. While he was in the study, Pei Rong was at a needlework stall in town, her fingers moving mechanically, stitching patterns she couldn't see. The kindly Auntie Lee noticed her pale, drawn face. Still fighting with your man? She asked gently. Pei Rong didn't look up from her work. Not fighting, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Just silence. She paused, her gaze drifting toward the
我很
direction
担
of their
心。
home.
我知道
A
阿妈，
new, hard
这日子
resolve
何时
slowly
是个
forming
头，
in
会
her
好的。
eyes. When Wang Sheng finally returned home that evening, dinner was already on the table. But the table was set for one. Pei Rong stood by the stove, eating from her bowl. She wouldn't sit with him. You were gone a long time today, she stated, not a question but an accusation. He felt a prickle of defensiveness. Work, and I met a strange Daoist on the street. At this, Pei Rong turned sharply, her eyes boring into him. What did she say? He looked away, evasive. Nothing worth repeating, just superstition. Pei Rong stared at him for a long, silent moment, and in that moment, he knew something had broken for good. She walked to the doorway of their bedroom. I'm sleeping in the side room tonight, she said, her voice soft but utterly final. Then she was gone, leaving him alone at the table with the untouched food growing cold. That night, sleep would not come. Wang Sheng lay alone in the main bedroom, the silence of the house pressing in on him. He pulled the Daoist talisman from his sleeve, its crinkled paper feeling heavy in his hand. He stared at it in the pale moonlight filtering through the window. At that very moment, in the back study, Xiao Wei sat by candlelight, gazing at her own reflection in a small bronze mirror. Her fingers traced the outline of her face, a slow, possessive gesture. A faint, unnatural smile curved her lips, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, a smile that wasn't entirely human. Back in the bedroom, the talisman trembled in Wang Sheng's hand as a sudden gust of wind rattled the paper window, a chilling note of a guqin hanging unresolved in the tense night air. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode.